Hello guys, welcome to Moon Recap. If you don't subscribe this channel, subscribe and enjoy every time. Also like and add your comment and share for someone want this. The film starts with the presentation of Jordan Turner, an administrator working at the 911 Crisis Base Camp in Los Angeles. She gets many calls during her shift, some of which are intense. Be that as it may, Jordan has consistently figured out how to try to avoid panicking and guide the worried individuals of risk. This has made her a very much regarded and well-known figure in the division. At some point, Jordan gets a call from a young lady named Leah, who faintly murmurs that an interloper is attempting to break into her home. Hearing this, Jordan quickly tracks her cell telephone's area and sends a few police to help her. She then trains Leah to stow away and secure herself in a room. The alarmed young lady obliges, and she gradually advances higher up. As the interloper goes into the house, he starts to look through the rooms. Right then, at that point, he sees a window marginally open and Leah's she's on the ground underneath it. This causes him to accept that she probably got away from the house as of now. He then, at that point, continues to go first floor and seek after her, not understanding that Leah is under the bed. Out of nowhere, the 911 calories from Leah's telephone unexpectedly closes, making Jordan alarm and redial the number. Tragically, the ringtone alarms the interloper of Leah's concealing area, and he in the end hauls her out. He then takes her telephone and starts conversing with Jordan. The last option frantically requests that he give up, saying the police are coming, yet the gatecrasher is unfazed. In a frightening voice, he tells her it's past the point of no return prior to hanging up the call. The occurrence leaves Jordan in a condition of shock, and she begins faulting herself for the unfortunate young lady's demise. A couple of days after the fact, Jordan gets back to work, yet she is as yet damaged and anxious to start her obligation. To exacerbate the situation, the news uncovers that Leah's body was tracked down in an entirely terrible condition close to the roadway. Jordan can't withstand anything else, so she stops her work and goes to the gallery for some natural air. Her sweetheart, Paul, who is a cop at similar office, joins her for help. He has a go at making sense of that these things are normal in this day and age, yet Jordan is too discouraged to even consider paying attention to him. The film then diets forward by a half year. Jordan is as yet battling from nervousness, so she has now left her place of employment as an administrator. All things considered, she fills in as a coach for newcomers. As this occupation doesn't need cooperation with the crisis guests, she is performing great. Elsewhere, two teen young ladies, Fall and Casey, are hanging out at a mall. It is a fine morning, and they are trusting that their different companions will show up. However, all of a sudden, Fall gets a call from her sweetheart and hurries to meet him. In a rush, she abandons her telephone, so Casey keeps it with her. Afterward, she gets back, and keeping in mind that strolling through the parking area, a vehicle unexpectedly switches, almost hitting her. Casey curses at the driver and gets her currently broken telephone. To her misfortune, the driver gets maddened and goes after her from behind. He then, at that point, thumps her oblivious utilizing chloroform, puts her inside his vehicle trunk and drives away. At the 911 Central Command. As Jordan is training the newcomers, an administrator unexpectedly gets a call. It ends up being from Casey, who has recently recaptured cognizance inside the vehicle's trunk. Since her telephone was harmed before, she's utilizing Fall's telephone at the present time. The administrator has a go at posing her inquiries, however Casey is terrified to such an extent that she couldn't frame a sentence appropriately. Subsequently, without any choices left, Jordan assumes control over the call as she is the most experienced administrator in the structure. She has a go at following Casey's area, however sadly, her telephone is a straightforward one, which doesn't use GPS. Jordan then gets for Plan B and inquires as to whether she recalls that anything while getting abducted. Casey, who is going to have a respiratory failure, digs profound and in the long run recalls that she is inside a red vehicle and that the hijacker is wearing glasses. Nonetheless, the data isn't sufficient, so Jordan asks Casey to break the taillight and overview the environmental elements. The last effectively dead is asked, and when she waves her hands through the opening, a lady recognizes her and calls 911. With this, Jordan at long last learns the vehicle's tag. Yet when she runs it through, she discovers that the hijacker is utilizing a phony character. Besides, when the lady goes against Jordan's idea and drives close to the ruffian to get a superior gander at his appearance, he gets dubious and suddenly leaves the interstate. As they are starting over from the beginning, Jordan tells Casey to scan the storage compartment for any valuable things. The scared young lady glances around and finds a jar of paint, a screwdriver, and a digging tool. When she sees the digging tool, Casey panics as she feels that the hijacker plans to kill and cover her with it. In any case, Jordan figures out how to quiet her down. She then teaches Casey to pour the paint outside, so the police can undoubtedly detect it from a helicopter. Tragically, when the hijacker stops at a red light, an irregular driver, unbeknownst about the circumstance, approaches him and uncovers about the releasing white paint. This cautions the criminal, so he promptly hops the red light and drives to an isolated region. He then, at that point, opens the storage compartment and undermines Casey, uninformed that she has a telephone on her. In the meantime, the driver from prior has become dubious at the sudden takeoff of the man, so he follows him and stops close by. Expecting that he is attempting to conceal something in the storage compartment, the driver attempts to defy the criminal, however at the same time, he gets gone after and wrecked with a digging tool. The criminal then, at that point, changes vehicles, loads the two of them, and drives off. In the accompanying scene, Paul and his accomplice follow the paint trail and find the criminal's neglected vehicle. Paul likewise sees blood on the vehicle and a crushed container of chloroform. This gives him a thought: he can now utilize the container to get the ruffian's finger impression. In the meantime, Casey keeps conversing with Jordan, therein to depict the new vehicle. Out of nowhere, the driver close to her awakens and begins shouting. This alarms the ruffian, so he leaves the vehicle, disposes of the driver, and afterward returns his cadaver to the storage compartment. Right now, Casey has turned into sure that she won't survive the ordeal. She begins saying her last supplications, yet Jordan indeed quiets her down and requests that she recover the ID of the driver. Casey obliges, and utilizing the data on the card, Jordan at last becomes acquainted with about the vehicle they are in. Right then, the criminal understands that he is running really short on gas, so he pulls over at a service station. Casey, whose telephone battery is likewise low, utilizes this chance to move through the rearward sitting arrangement of the vehicle and shout for help. The arrangement works, and a close-by specialist sees her. However, before he might in fact respond, the ruffian disposes of him by splashing gas and setting him ablaze. He then thumps Casey oblivious and shuts the storage compartment. In view of the episode, Jordan loses contact with Casey and ends up being concerned. Yet, fortunately, utilizing the unique finger impression from the wrecked glass bottle, the police recognize the criminal as Michelle Cultivate Paul. When they get the data, Paul and his subordinates race to Michelle's home to accumulate leads and question his better half. In the interim, Michelle shows up at his objective and gets Casey from the vehicle trunk. Regrettably, when he checks the young lady, he finds a telephone that is still associated with the police. At the point when he gets it, Jordan tends to him by his full name and illuminates him that the police are at his home, examining his loved ones. She likewise cautions him to give up and leave Casey, however Michelle answers that it's past the point of no return. When Jordan hears these words, she understands that Michelle is a similar individual who captured and killed Leah a half-year prior. Somewhere else, as Paul is looking over the criminal's home, he goes over an image. It includes a lady who looks shockingly like Leah. She is uncovered to be Michelle's departed sister. Paul promptly gets some information about the area of the image, and the last option recognizes it as St. Nick Clarita Slopes. Yet again, burning through no time, the police head there. Be that as it may, they track down nothing. Meanwhile, Michael brings Casey to an underpass shelter and starts setting up her for an operation. He ties her to the seat. Nonetheless, she figures out how to twerk her arms free and splash him with a bug spray. Casey then endeavors to escape, however unfortunately, Michael effectively catches her. Right now, it has become 12 p.m. yet Jordan is still at the Cal Focus, attempting to track down one more hint for the situation. Afterward, Paul gets in touch with her and commitments that Casey will be found alive and that the police are looking through each passing vehicle nearby. Regardless of this, Jordan isn't fulfilled, so she chooses to assume control over issues. She heads to Michael's unwanted old house, where she finds a few photos of his loved ones. As Jordan gets through them, she at long last becomes more acquainted with that Michelle's sister passed on from malignant growth and that Casey is likewise of a similar age. Expecting that it is past the point of no return, a discouraged Jordan gets ready to leave, yet all at once, she hears a similar foundation noisy that she had heard before in Casey's telephone call recording. Jordan then glances around and finds Casey's crushed telephone and an underpass hatch. This is the point at which it at long last occurs to her that Michelle does all his appalling wrongdoings inside the shelter. Jordan needs to call for reinforcement, however she is likewise terrified that it might caution the hijacker. Hensley, after much consideration, she heads inside the fortification herself. When Jordan arrives at the base, she finds Michelle preparing for something. She then conceals in a corner while Michelle begins stroking a blonde hairpiece that looks like his sister's hair. Seeing blood on the ground, Jordan understands that the hair in Michelle's grasp has been as of late pulled from one of his casualties' scalp. It is then uncovered that the ruffian misses his late sister such a lot of that he hijacks young ladies looking like her appearance and takes their scalps off. He then stores them in a small refrigerator as a gift. In the following scene, when Michelle plans to slice through Casey's scalp, Jordan emerges from her concealing spot and hits him with a life-sized model head, thumping him oblivious. She then, at that point, figures out how to free Casey from the careful table and continues to escape the spot. Nonetheless, to their misfortune, Michelle gets up and assaults Jordan. Similarly, as he is going to polish her off, Casey strikes him in the head, making him stagger and fall to the ground. The two young ladies then, at that point, escape the dugout, with Michelle following them gradually. When he arrives at the top, they assault him and pitiless lyrics toss him to the lower part of the fortification. Having a good sense of reassurance, interestingly, Jordan plans to call for reinforcement, however Casey stops her, noteworthy that she has another arrangement. In the last scene, when Michelle awakens, he winds up tied to a similar careful seat. Jordan and Casey then approach him and notice that they will leave him in the dugout as a discipline for his wrongdoings. Hearing this, Michael frenzies and starts crying. He asks to call the police and get him captured, yet the young ladies totally disregard him and leave the room. The film closes with a wonderful note as the insane killer is passed on to decay inside the shelter. Thanks to watching this video. Subscribe for more video and like if you enjoy, also add your comment. Bye bye, see you tomorrow.